እያንዳንዱ የአእምሮ እክሎች አንድ በአንድ እና የሚፈጥሯቸው ኢፌክቶች ምንድናቸው የሚለውን እንይ። ከዲፕሬሽን ነው የጀመረው።
Depression. Depression is a mental disorder that drains the color out of life. It affects how your brain produces and uses chemicals like serotonin and dopamine, the messengers that help you feel pleasure, motivation, and connection. When these systems malfunction, everything becomes harder. You wake up exhausted even after sleeping for 10 hours. Food tastes like nothing. Hobbies that once excited you now feel pointless. Your brain tells you that nothing will ever get better, and you believe it because depression doesn't feel like sadness. It feels like emptiness. Sadness has a reason, a story, a cause. Depression just exists, heavy and constant, even when your life looks fine from the outside. People say, just think positive, or go for a walk. But depression isn't a bad mood you can shake off. It's your brain physically struggling to generate the chemicals that make caring possible. Thoughts slow down, decisions become overwhelming, and getting out of bed can feel like climbing a mountain. You might sleep all day or lie awake all night. You withdraw from friends not because you want to, but because pretending to be okay takes energy you don't have. Over time, untreated depression reshapes how you see yourself and the world. It convinces you that this numbness is who you really are, that joy was always temporary, that hope is just a
ዲፕሬሽን ድብርት የሚደብር ነገር ነው አይደለ? ጭንቀት ነው ዲፕሬሽን። ቦርደም ቢንግ ቦርድ ነው አይደለ? ድብርት whatever it is። ግን if you feel depressed, first thing is first። ድብርት እንደዚህ ጭንቀት እና ዲፕሬሽን ከተሰማ የመጀመሪያ ነገር ምግብ በደንብ ብላ ሆነስትሊ እና ውሃ በደንብ መጠጣት ግድ ነው። ከዛ ቀጥሎ ያለው ሌቭል ላይ ከፍ ያለው
lie
ሌቭል ላይ
people tell
እናወራለን።
themselves. The disorder doesn't announce itself loudly. It whispers quietly until you forget what feeling alive used to be like. Generalized anxiety.
ወደዛው ሳንገባ በፊት ዲፕሬሽን ላይክ ከምንድን ነው የሚመጣው? አንደኛ አቴንሽን ስፓናችን ላይክ በተለያዩ ነገሮች መሰረቅ ለምዷል። ላይክ አቴንሽናችንን የሆነ የሚሰርቀው ነገር እስከሌለ ድረስ እንደበራለን አይደለ? ላይክ ቲክቶክ ምን የሆነ ነገር ብቻ ትኩረታችንን የሚሰርቅብን ነገር እንፈልጋለን። ያንን ካላገኘን እንደበራለን። አንድ የስራ ባልደረባዬን የሆነ ጊዜ ለአንድ ሰዓት ጸጥ ብለህ ቁጭ በል፣ ምንም ነገር ሳታረግ ምንም ሳትነካ ለአንድ ሰዓት ቁጭ በልና አሪፍ ብር ልስጥክ ብየው ላይክ ሳይሞክረው አልችልም ብሎ ሳያረገው ቀረ ማለት ነው። እና ይሄ የለመድነው አቴንሽን የሚሰርቅብን ነገር አለ። እሱን ካጣን ድብርት ይሰማናል ብዙ ጊዜ። ግን ከዛም ከፍ ባለ መልኩ ምን አለ ላይክ ይሄ የድብርት ስሜት መጥፎ ብቻ አይደለም፣ በሆነ መልኩ ደግሞ መልካም ጎንም አለው። ሚንስ የሆነ ነገር ሲደብርክ ምንም ነገር ለማድረግ ኢነርጂ ስታጣ እስከዛሬ ስታደርጋቸው የነበሩ ነገሮች በሙሉ ይሄ እያደክባቸው እንደሆነ አንደርስታንድ አድርጋቸው እነዛ ነገሮች ኤኒሞር ላይክ ምንም ኢነርጂ አይሰጡክም፣ አይነሳሱክም፣ ምን አይሉክም። ዛት ሚንስ የሆነ ከፍ ወዳለ ስቴጅ ላይክ እያደክ ነው። እና ይህንን ድብርቱን ምኑ ለሆነ መሻገሪያነት ተጠቀመው። ላይክ መሸሽ ምን ማለቱ አያስፈልገውም፣ መጋፈጡ ነው ጥሩ። እንደደበረክ ተቀብለ በተለያዩ ነገሮች አቴንሽንን እንትን ብለ ለመርሳት ከመሞከር የሆነ ቪሳስ ላይ ያየሁት አንድ ቪዲዮ ነበር። ቦርደም ልክ ሲደብረን አእምሯችን ምንም የሚያደርገው አቴንሽናችንን የሚሰርቀው ነገር እናጣለን አይደለ? ያኔ አእምሯችን የሆነ ለክሪኤቲቪቲ ይነሳሳል። ምንም የምታደርገው ነገር ስታጣ የሀሳብ ማዕት ነው የሚመጣብህ፣ የሚወጣብህ፣ የሚወርድብህ። ያንን ነገር የሆነ ነገር ላይ ለማዋል ከተጠቀምከው ላይክ እንደ መሸጋገሪያነትም ያገለግላል። መጥፎ ጎኑ እንዳለ ዴንጀሩ እንዳለ ሆኖ ማለት አደጋው ይታየኛል። አስተውላችሁ ከሆነ በኮሮና ወቅት ነው አብዛኛው ሰው ኬሪየሩን የገነባው። የኮሮና ጊዜ ብዙ ሰዎች ዲፕሬሽን ውስጥ ገብተው ነበረ፣ ምን ብለው ነበረ። እና በዛ ወቅት ነው ላይክ ቲክቶከር የሆኑት ምን ዩቲዩበር ብዙ ነገሮችን ቢውልድ ማድረግ የቻሉት በዛ በድብርቱ ወቅት የሚያደርጉት ሲያጡ ነው። አሁን ላይ የገበያቸው ምናቸው መሆን እስኪችል ድረስ የተጠቀሙበትም አሉና ወደ ጥሩ እንትን ማለት ይቻላል። ግን ከአቅም በላይ የሆነ ነገር ከሆነ ሲክ ሳም ሀልፕ ላይክ እርዳታ መጠየቅ
Anxiety disorder. Generalized anxiety disorder turns normal worry into a constant alarm system that never shuts off. Your brain treats everyday situations like emergencies, flooding your body with stress hormones even when there's no real danger. Everyone worries sometimes about tests or money or relationships, but anxiety disorder makes you worry about everything, all the time, even things that haven't happened yet and probably never will. You lie awake imagining disasters. You replay conversations, convinced you said something wrong. Your mind jumps from one fear to the next, building worst-case scenarios out of nothing. Physically, your body stays tense. Your shoulders ache, your stomach hurts, and your heart races for no clear reason. You feel exhausted because your nervous system thinks it's protecting you from threats that don't exist. Simple decisions become overwhelming.
ይሄ ከእንትን ነው የሚመጣው አንዣይቲ ዲስኦርደር የሆነ የሁሉንም ነገር መጥፎ ጎኖቹን ለማየት ከመሞከር ምን ላይክ ወረስት አውትካሙ የዚህ ነገር ምን ይሆን ከሆነ ከንግግር ከምናምን ብዙ ጊዜ እኔ በዚህ ነገር ሳልጠቃ አልቀርም። ብዙ ጊዜ ከሰዎች ጋር ሳወራ ምናምን ነገር ለቃላቶቼ ለምን እጨነቃለሁ፣ እጠነቀቃለሁ። በጣም ካወራው በኋላ ከሆነ ነገር ካረኩ በኋላ ራሱ ተመልሼ ላይክ አጠነጥናቸዋለሁ። ላይክ እንደዚህ አይነት እንትኖች ይኖሩት ይሆን መጥፎ አውትካም ይኖረው ይሆን ምናምን እያልኩኝ ማለት ነው። ዛትስ ናት ጉድ ላይክ sometimes it's okay ቀለል ለማድረጉ አይደለ?
Because every choice feels like it could lead to catastrophe. Should you send that text? What if they misunderstand? What if they get angry? The disorder steals your ability to relax because your brain has forgotten how to tell the difference between actual danger and imagined problems. People tell you to calm down, to stop overthinking, but that's like telling someone with a broken leg to just walk normally. Over time, the constant tension wears you down. You start avoiding situations that trigger worry, which only makes the world feel smaller and more threatening. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is a condition where your brain struggles to regulate focus, impulses, and energy. The part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex, which controls planning and self-control, develops more slowly or works differently. This means you want to pay attention, you want to sit still, you want to finish tasks, but your brain won't cooperate. People think ADHD means you can't focus on anything, but that's wrong. You can hyper-focus on things that interest you for hours, losing track of time completely. The problem is you can't choose what gets your attention. Boring tasks feel physically painful to start. Your mind wanders during conversations even when you care about the person talking. You forget appointments, lose your keys, and leave projects half-finished, not because you're lazy, but because your brain doesn't produce enough dopamine to make follow-through feel rewarding.
ADHD like attention ትኩረት ማጣት ነው ወይስ መርሳት ነው? የሆነ ነገር ላይ ADHD ያለባቸው ሰዎች ላይክ አቴንሽን ስፓናቸው በጣም አጭር ነው። ለሆነ ነገር ትኩረት የሚሰጡት ነገር በጣም ጥቂት ነው እና ደግሞ በጣም ብዙ ነገር ላይክ ይረሳሉ ምናምን ነገር አይደለ? ብዙም
Impulsivity makes you interrupt people. Buy things without thinking, or say things you instantly regret. You might fidget constantly, tap your foot, or feel restless in your own skin. Time feels slippery. You underestimate how long things take, then panic when deadlines appear suddenly. At school or work, you're called careless, unmotivated, or ditzy, but inside you're trying harder than anyone realizes. The exhausting part is knowing what you need to do while watching yourself fail to do it anyway. ADHD creates a gap between intention and action that willpower alone can't bridge. Obsessive-compulsive disorder. Obsessive-compulsive disorder traps your mind in a loop of intrusive thoughts and desperate rituals. Your brain gets stuck on a fear, an image, or a terrible what-if scenario, and it won't let go. These are called obsessions, unwanted thoughts that invade your mind even when you try to push them away. Maybe you're terrified of germs spreading disease, or convinced you left the stove on and your house will burn down, or haunted by violent images that horrify you. The thoughts feel so real, so urgent, that your brain demands you do something to make them stop. That's where compulsions come in. You wash your hands until they crack and bleed. You check the door locks 15 times before leaving. You count, tap, arrange objects in perfect order, or repeat phrases silently. These rituals feel like the only way to prevent disaster, but the relief lasts seconds before the anxiety returns and demands you do it again. OCD can...
OCD እርግጠኛ ነኝ የሁላችንም እናቶች ላይ ሳይኖርባቸው አይቀርም። አይዶን ነው ወይ የኔ ላይ ሊሆን ይችላል። ሲሪየስ የሆነ ነገር ነው። ግን እንደ እንትን ማዘር ስቶቭ ለኩሳ ወይም ደግሞ አጥፍታ ማታ ስተኛ 10 ጊዜ ነው እየተነሳች ቼክ የምታደርገው። በር ቆልፋ ሌሊት ብንን ብላ ተነስታ በሩን ቼክ ታደርጋለች። ላይክ ይሄ ነው ማለት ነው አይደለ? ኦብቪየስሊ ማለት ሲሪየስ የሚባለው ሌቭል ላይ ባይደርስም እንኳን ግን ላይክ እዚህ እኔ ጋር መታ እኔ ዞር ብዬ አይቼ የማላውቀውን ጋዙ ምኑን ሁሉን ነገር በየደቂቃው 10 ቼክ ታደርገዋለች ምናምን ነገርና
convinces you that your thoughts have power, that thinking something bad makes it more likely to happen unless you perform the right action. People joke about being so OCD when they like things organized, but real OCD is torture. You know the rituals are irrational. You know checking the stove 10 times makes no logical sense, but the fear is so overwhelming that you can't stop yourself. Hours disappear into compulsions. Your hands hurt. Your mind exhausts itself, and the disorder tightens its grip. OCD doesn't make you careful or neat. It makes you a prisoner to thoughts you never wanted in the first place. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder happens when your brain gets stuck in survival mode after experiencing something terrifying. A car crash, violence, abuse, war, or any event where
PTSD በጣም መጥፎ ነገር ላይክ ፓስት ትራውማ ካለባችሁ ምንም ነገር ላይክ ያን ነገር ደግማችሁ እንትን ማለት አትችሉም። ለምሳሌ በመኪና አደጋ የሚሆን የሆነ የፕሌን መንገጫገጭ ምናምን እንትን ካለ ያ ትራውማ ድጋሚ በቃ ፕሌን የሚባል ነገር የሆነ ሀይት ላይ የሆነ ነገር ከተፈጠረ አንድ ሰፈር ገዳም ሲሄዱ የሆኑ የሰፈራችን ሰዎች በሃይገር ባስ ነው በሆነ ባስ ብቻ ሄደው ይገለበጣል ማለት ነው እና ብቻ ተረፉ ምናምን ነገር ነው። ደግመው ሁሉም በዛ ባስ አይሄዱም ማለት ነው።
Like you felt your life was in danger can rewire how your brain processes fear and safety. Normally, after something scary ends, your nervous system calms down and files the memory away. With PTSD, that system breaks. Your brain keeps replaying the trauma as if it's still happening right now. Flashbacks aren't like normal memories where you picture the past. They're vivid, physical re-experiences. A smell, a sound, or a random sight can transport you back instantly. Your heart pounds, your breathing quickens, and for those seconds or minutes, you genuinely believe you're in danger again.
ላይክ ከዚህ ነገር ሙቭ ኦን ማድረግ የማትችሉ ከሆነ በሆነ አቅም በጣም አስቸጋሪ ነው። ለምሳሌ የሆነ የትዳር ህይወታችሁ መጥፎ ከነበረ ላይክ እድሜ ልካችሁን በቃ ትዳርን እንደ መጥፎ እያያችሁ ነው የምትሄዱት፣ ወይ ወንድን እንደ መጥፎ እየጠላችሁ፣ ወይ የሆነ ፍቅረኛችሁ የሆነ ነገር ካረገቻችሁ በቃ ያ ትራማ አይለቃችሁም ማለት ነው እና ዛትስ ባድ ላይክ ትሪት መደረግ የሚገባው
Nightmares invade your sleep, jolting you awake in terror. You become hypervigilant, constantly scanning for threats, unable to relax even in safe places. Loud noises make you jump. Crowds feel suffocating. You avoid anything that reminds you of the trauma, which sometimes means avoiding entire parts of your life. Emotions become unpredictable. Anger erupts over small things. You feel numb and disconnected, even from people you love. Concentration disappears because your brain is too busy watching for danger to focus on anything else. PTSD makes you feel broken, like the trauma stole who you used to be. Your brain is trying to protect you, but the alarm system won't turn off. You're living in the aftermath while your mind keeps dragging you back to the worst moment. Bipolar disorder.
Bipolar disorder. Hey, the craziest
Bipolar
one.
disorder sends your brain swinging between extreme emotional states that you can't control. There are two poles, mania and depression, and you cycle between them in patterns that can last days, weeks, or months. During a manic episode, your brain floods with energy and confidence that feels almost superhuman. You sleep 2 hours and wake up buzzing with ideas. You talk fast, jump between thoughts, and feel like you can accomplish anything. Risky.
Bipolar disorder ማለት ላይክ የሙዳችሁ የሚዋዥቅ አይነት ሰዎች መሆን ማለት ነው። የሆነ ሳምንት ላይ በቃ በጣም ኢነርጄቲክ ትሆናላችሁ፣ ቤት ታጸዳላችሁ፣ ምናምን ደስተኛ ናችሁ፣ ትጨፍራላችሁ ምናምን ነገር። ከዛ በቀጣይ ሳምንት ደግሞ ምንም ኢነርጂ የላችሁ፣ ቁዝም ብላችሁ ምናምን ትቀመጣላችሁ ማለት ነው። ዛትስ ባድ ላይክ ለእናንተ ብቻ ሳይሆን በዙሪያችሁ ላለ ሰው ራሱ በጣም ግራ አጋቢ ነው የሚሆነው ማለት ነው። ሙዳችሁ ላይክ ባይፖላር disorder ካለባችሁ
decisions suddenly seem brilliant. You might spend money you don't have, start 5 projects at once, or believe you've discovered something world-changing. Colors seem brighter, connections feel profound, and sitting still becomes impossible. But mania burns too hot. Your thoughts race faster than you can follow them. Irritability spikes when people can't keep up with you. Sometimes the energy tips into paranoia or delusions where reality blurs. Then the crash comes. The manic high collapses into depressive lows, where all that energy drains away completely. You can barely get out of bed. Everything that felt possible now feels pointless. The contrast makes the depression even heavier because you remember what having energy felt like. Bipolar disorder exhausts you with its unpredictability. You never know which version of yourself will show up tomorrow. Relationships suffer because people can't keep up with the shifts. Plans fall apart during depressive episodes. Consequences from manic decisions haunt you later. This isn't having mood swings or change changing your mind. Your brain chemistry swings between extremes without asking permission, and you're just trying to hold on through the ride. Panic disorder. Panic disorder makes your body sound a false alarm that feels like dying. Your brain's fear center, the amygdala, misfires and triggers a full survival response, even though there's no actual danger. A panic attack hits suddenly, often without warning. Your heart starts pounding so hard you're convinced it will explode. Your chest tightens, making it feel impossible to breathe. Sweat pours down your back, your hands go numb, and dizziness makes the room spin. You're certain something catastrophic is happening. Heart attack, stroke, loss of control, death. Every physical sensation feeds the terror.
Like አውት ኦፍ ኖዌር እንዴት ፓኒክ ዲስኦርደር ሊያጋጥማችሁ ይችላል? የሆነ ነገር ካላስደነገጣችሁ ኦር ሳምቲንግ አፕን ካላረገ ወይ የሆነ ትራማ ካሌላችሁ ያንን የሚያስታውሳችሁ ነገር ከሌለ አስበዋል? ከመሬት ተነስቶ የሆነ ነገር ልብን ሲያስደነግጠና ከመደንገጥ በላይ የፓኒክ ውስጥ ከመግባት በላይ ፓኒክ ውስጥ ያስገባኝ ምንድን ነው የሚለው በራሱ ሌላ ተጨማሪ ጭንቀት ነው።
A feedback loop where fear makes symptoms worse and symptoms make fear stronger. The attack peaks within 10 minutes, then slowly fades, leaving you drained and shaken. But the real trap isn't the attack itself. After your first one, you develop a new fear, the fear of having another panic attack. You start avoiding places where you panicked before, grocery stores, highways, crowded rooms. You worry constantly about when the next attack will strike, which ironically makes attacks more likely because anxiety primes your body for panic. Your world shrinks as you eliminate situations where escape feels difficult. Some people stop leaving their house entirely. Panic disorder convinces you that your body is dangerous and unreliable. You're not afraid of the world anymore. You're afraid of yourself, of what your own nervous system might do without permission. The disorder doesn't just steal moments, it steals your sense of safety in your own skin. Social anxiety disorder. Social anxiety disorder transforms everyday interactions into performances where you're convinced you'll fail. Your brain treats social situations like threats, flooding your body with fear responses meant for actual danger. Walking into a room full of people feels like stepping onto a stage where everyone is watching, judging, waiting for you to mess up. Before you even speak, your mind floods with worst-case scenarios. What if you say something stupid? What if they think you're boring? What if your voice shakes or your face turns red? The fear becomes so intense that your body reacts physically. Your heart races, your hands tremble, sweat soaks through your shirt, and your voice comes out wrong, too quiet or too shaky. You're so focused on monitoring yourself that you can't think clearly, which makes you stumble over words, forget what you were saying, or go completely blank. After the interaction ends, your brain replays every moment, magnifying tiny mistakes into disasters. You convince yourself that
social anxiety ምንድነው? ከሰዎች ጋር መቀላቀል የሚፈጥርባችሁ ላይክ ጭንቀት ከሰው ጋር መቀላቀል የሚያስጨንቃችሁ ሲቹዌሽን ውስጥ መግባት እንደማለት ነውና አስተውላችሁ ከሆነ ባይ ዘ ዌይ ከ2020 ዓመተ ምህረት ከኮሮና በኋላ ላይክ ኤቭሪቲንግ ኢዝ ዲፍረንት እንደ ድሮ አይደለም። ላይክ ይሄ ሶሻላይዝ ማድረግ ምን ማለት አይ ፊል ላይክ ሙሉ ለሙሉ የተቀየረ ይመስለኛል። ላይክ ሰው እንዲህ ወደ ራሱ የገባ ይመስለኛል ነው። በጣም ኢንዲቪዥዋል መሆን የበዛ ይመስለኛል። እንደ ድሮ ማህበረሰብ መቀላቀልና የሶሻል anxiety-ያችን
everyone noticed that they're talking about how awkward you were, that you've ruined their opinion of you forever. This isn't shyness or introversion. Shy people might feel nervous but can push through. Social anxiety hijacks your entire system, making escape feel like the only option. You start avoiding parties, presentations, phone calls, even necessary conversations. Opportunities disappear because the fear of judgment outweighs everything else. The disorder isolates you while convincing you that isolation is safer than risking humiliation. You're not antisocial, you're terrified of being seen. Eating disorder.
Like antisocial የምትሆኑት ከወዳችሁ አይደለም አይደል? አንዳንዴ you know there are a lot of things like አሁን ብዙ ጊዜ ማለት ነው እኔ በተለይ ከቅርብ ጊዜ ወዲህ ከሰዎች ጋር ስቀላቀል አንዳንዴ like I feel like የማወራው ነገር አጣለሁ። ምክንያቱም እዛ የተቀላቀልኩት አካባቢ ላይ የሚወራው ነገር አላቆም ስለዛ ነገር ላይ የሚወራው ስለሆነ ስለ ግለሰብ ሊሆን ይችላል ስለሆነ ነገር you know I can't እንደዚህ አይነት ነገሮች ማውራት አልችልም። I can't አእምሮዬ ፕሮሰስ ማድረግ አይችልም እንደዚህ አይነት ነገርና I feel like dumb like ያለ ቦታ የተገኘው ነገር like የሰው እዛ ቦታ ላይ ለዛ ቦታ የማልመጥን ሆኜ ላይክ ከሰዎች ጋር ስቀላቀል እንደውም ብቸኝነት ይሰማኛል አንዳንዴ ከአንዳንድ ሰዎች ጋር ስፔሲፊካሊ እና ቢኮዝ የሆነ ሀሳብ የምታነሳው ሀሳብ እነሱ ጋር በጣም የወረደ ይሆናል ኖ አልተለመደም ምናምን ነገር እኔ ደግሞ ያንን አልለመድኩትም እና ከዛ የተነሳ አንዳንዴ ከሰዎች ጋር አለመቀላቀልን ትመርጣለህ ቢኮዝ አትግባባ ብታወራ አትግባባ የሚያወሩትም አይገባም የምታወራው ደግሞ በጣም የወረደ ሀሳብ ይሆንባቸዋል ለእነሱ ማለት ነው ሶ
Eating disorders hijack your relationship with food and twist it into a method of control. Anorexia restricts eating to
eating disorder የመብላትም ዲስኦርደር አለ
dangerous levels, driven by an intense fear of gaining weight and a distorted view of your own body. You look in the mirror and see someone overweight even when you're dangerously thin. Every calorie becomes an enemy. Eating feels like failure and hunger feels like success. Your brain convinces you that controlling food is the one thing you can manage when everything else feels chaotic. Bulimia creates a different cycle. You eat large amounts in secret, feeling out of control, then purge through vomiting or excessive exercise to undo it. The shame is overwhelming, but the pattern repeats because the disorder promises relief that never actually comes. Both conditions destroy your body slowly. Your heart weakens, your bones become brittle, your hair falls out, and your organs struggle to function. But the physical damage hides behind the mental trap. Eating disorders aren't really about food or weight. They're about control, perfectionism, and trying to shrink yourself when the world feels too big. The disorder speaks in your
eating disorder ላይክ መወፈርን የሚያመጣው ነገር ነው አልገባኝም ላይክ መክሳቱን ነው እንትን እያለ ያለው ቢኮዝ ኢትስ በጣም ኃይለኛ በሽታ ሆኗል አሁን ላይ በተለይ ከልክ በላይ መብላት ውጭ ዓለም ላይ በተለይ ይሄ ጃንክ ፉዶች የማክዶናልድ በርገር ምናምን እየበሉ በነገራችን ላይ የሆነ ስታስቲክ አይቼ የማን መጽሐፍ ላይ ነው የዩቫ ሃራሪ ሆሞዴኒስ የሚለው መጽሐፍ ላይ ይመስለኛል በረሃብ ከሚሞተው ሰው ይልቅ አሁን ላይ ከልክ በላይ ከመብላት ላይክ ቅጥ ያጣ ውፍረትን ከመወፈር የሚሞተው ሰው ይበዛል ኢትስ ክሬዚ ከመቶ ምናምን ዓመታት በፊት ከጥቂት ዓመታት በፊት ማለት ነው ወፍራም ሰው ማየት ኢትስ በጣም ሬር ነበረ አውሮፓ ላይ አንድ ሰውዬ ነበረ ወፍራም ሰውዬ ማለት ነው ወፍራም ስላችሁ ዳት ማች ራሱ ወፍራም አይደለም አሁን ከምናቀው ውፍረት አንፃር ኖርማል የሚባል ደንደን ያለ ሰውነት ያለው ሰው አለ አይደለ እና ሰዎች እንደ በጣም ወፍራም ሰው አይተውት ማለት ነው በዛ ወቅት ከጥቂት መቶ ዓመታት በፊት እኮ ነው ዩሮፕ ውስጥ ነውና ላይክ ይጎበኙት ነበር ሄደው ማለት ነው ወፍራም ሰው አለ ተብሎ you know because ላይክ ስራ ላይ ናቸው እንቅስቃሴ ነው ምንድነው ከልክ ያለቅጥ መብላት የለም ነው እና ላይፍ ስታይሉም አይጋብዝም ነበርና ሰውየው ከየት የመጣ እንደሆነ አይታወቅም ብቻ ወፈር ያለ ሰውዬ ነውና ይጎበኙት ነበር ኢማጂን አሁን ላይ ጀስት ኖርማል መንገድ ላይ የምታዩት ሰው እንደማለት ነው you ምን ያህል ከልክ በላይ መብላት እንደተባለ
disguising itself as logic and willpower. It tells you that eating is weakness, that thinness equals worth, that you're never small enough. Friends and family beg you to eat, but you can't just start because the disorder has convinced you that letting go means losing yourself. Recovery feels like giving up the only thing protecting you, even though that protection is killing you. Borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder makes your emotions feel like a storm you can't escape. Your brain struggles to regulate feelings, so emotions that others experience as waves hit you like tsunamis. Something small, a canceled plan or an unanswered text, can send you spiraling into despair or rage within seconds. You feel everything at maximum intensity with almost no middle ground. Relationships become battlegrounds because you're terrified of abandonment. You cling desperately to people, then push them away when the fear of losing them becomes unbearable. One moment, someone is perfect. The next, they're terrible, and you can't hold both truths at once. This black and white thinking extends to yourself, too. You're either worthless or special, special, never just human. Your sense of identity shifts constantly. You mirror whoever you're with because you're not sure who you actually are underneath. Impulsivity strikes without warning. You might quit jobs suddenly, spend recklessly, drive dangerously, or lash out verbally just to release the pressure building inside. Self-harm sometimes becomes a way to feel something concrete when emotions become too abstract and overwhelming. People call you dramatic, manipulative, or unstable, but inside you're drowning. Every interaction feels life or death because your emotional system lacks the buffer that helps others stay balanced. You're not trying to cause chaos. Your brain genuinely experiences normal situations as crises. The exhaustion comes from living in constant emotional emergency mode, while everyone around you wonders why you can't just calm down. You're not sure who you actually are underneath. Impulsivity strikes without warning. You might quit jobs suddenly, spend recklessly, drive dangerously, or lash out verbally just to release the pressure building inside. Self-harm sometimes becomes a way to feel something concrete when emotions become too abstract and overwhelming. People call you dramatic, manipulative, or unstable, but inside you're drowning. Every interaction feels life or death because your emotional system lacks the buffer that helps others stay balanced. You're not trying to cause chaos. Your brain genuinely experiences normal situations as crises. The exhaustion comes from living in constant emotional emergency mode, while everyone around you wonders why you can't just calm down. You want stability desperately, but your own mind keeps pulling the ground out from under you. Schizophrenia. Schizophrenia fractures how your brain processes reality. Neurotransmitters like dopamine misfire, causing your mind to create experiences that aren't actually happening while struggling to organize thoughts that are real. The disorder has two categories of symptoms. Positive symptoms add things that shouldn't be there. Hallucinations make you hear voices commenting on your actions, criticizing you, or giving commands. You might see people
ዩኖዋት ምን አይነት ዲስኦርደር አለብኝ መሰለያችሁ እኔ እዚህ ላይ የሌለ ያልተገለጸ ማለት ነው። የሆነ ጊዜ ሰይፉ ሲለው ሰምቻለሁ። ምንድነው ሰው ስለሆነ በሽታ ሲያወራ ወይ ስሰማ ያ በሽታ ይይዘኛል። ስለ ቁርጥማት ሲወራ ቁርጥማት ያለብኝ ይመስላል። ስለሆነ ነገር ሲወራ ላይክ ሁሉም በሽታ፣ ሁሉም ዲስኦርደር፣ ሁሉም ችግር ሲወራ እኔም ያለብኝ ይመስለኛል ማለት ነው። አይ ዶንት ኖ ዋይ አሁን ሲወራ ላይ ከምሰማቸው እንትኖች ቪዲዮቹ ላይ የምሰማቸው አለብኝ የለብኝ ይሄኛውማ አለብኝ ይሄኛው የለብኝም እያልኩ ነው የምሰማቸው ማለት ነው። እና እሱም ዲስኦርደር ምንም እኮ የለባችሁም ባሰሙት ኖሮ አታውቁም እንደዚህ አይነት ነገር ግን ስሰሙት like ከራሳችሁ ጋር ታዋዱታላችሁ.
Who don't exist or feel sensations on your skin that have no source. Delusions convince you of false beliefs that feel absolutely true. You might think the government is tracking you, that strangers are plotting against you, or that you have special powers. These aren't choices or imagination. Your brain genuinely perceives them as real. Negative symptoms subtract things that should be there. Emotions flatten until you can't feel joy or express feelings naturally. Motivation disappears, making basic tasks like showering or eating feel impossible. Speech becomes disorganized, jumping between unrelated topics, or you might stop talking altogether because forming coherent sentences requires energy you don't have. Movies show schizophrenia as violent and dangerous, but most people with this disorder are more likely to be victims than threats. The real danger is internal, the confusion and terror of not knowing what's real. You can't trust your own perceptions. Voices might tell you terrible things about yourself. Paranoia makes
like ድምጾች ምናምን ነገር መስማት ማለት ነው. you know like የሆነ ነገር ውስጣችሁ እንዳለ ሁሉ ሌላ ማንነት እንዳለ ሁሉ ያ ነገር የሚያወራው ያ ነገር የሚሆነው ነገር ምናምን ውጪ ላይ የሌለን ነገር ኤክስፒሪየንስ እያደረጋችሁ እውነታው የቱ ይሁን ቅዠታችሁ የቱ ይሁን እንኳን አለማወቅ ማለት ነው. that's very bad. damn that's
everyone feel like an enemy. Treatment helps many people manage symptoms, but schizophrenia remains one of the most misunderstood and stigmatized conditions, turning a medical disorder into a cultural nightmare. Dissociative identity disorder. Dissociative identity disorder fragments a person's identity into separate parts as a survival response to severe childhood trauma. When a child experiences abuse so overwhelming that their mind can't process it, the brain protects itself by compartmentalizing. Different identity states, often called alters, developed to hold specific memories, emotions, or roles that the main consciousness couldn't handle. A person's identity into separate parts as a survival response to severe childhood trauma. When a child experiences abuse so overwhelming that their mind can't process it, the brain protects itself by compartmentalizing. Different identity states, often called alters, develop to hold specific memories, emotions, or roles that the main consciousness couldn't handle. These aren't imaginary friends or acting. They're distinct parts of one person's psyche. They can have different ages, genders, memories, and ways of seeing the world. Switching between alters can happen without warning. You might lose time, finding yourself in places with no memory of how you got there. Friends mention conversations you don't remember having. Your handwriting changes, your preferences shift, and suddenly you're holding opinions or skills you didn't know you had. Some alters protect by holding anger, others comfort by staying childlike, and some contain the traumatic memories so the main identity can function day to day. Movies portray this disorder as dangerous or supernatural, but the reality is far more painful. You're not multiple people. You're one person whose mind shattered under pressure too great for a child to bear. The disorder creates internal chaos where different parts might conflict, cooperate, or remain unaware of each other. Rebuilding a coherent sense of self requires years.
የተለያየ ማንነት ውስጥ መኖር ማለት ነው አይደለ? ዲሶሲቲቭ አይደንቲቲ ዲስኦርደር ላይክ ከልጅነታችሁ ትራማ ከምን ላይ ተነስታችሁ እያንዳንዱ ሲቹዌሽኖች ሃንድል የምታረጉት በተለያየ ማንነታችሁ ውስጥ ነው። ዩ ኖ ላይክ ለየሲቹዌሽኖች ሁሉ የተለያየ ማንነት አላችሁ ማለት ነው። ሪል የሆነ እናንተነታችሁን
Years of therapy. The fragmentation that once protected you now makes daily life feel like navigating without a map, never fully sure who's in control or what memories are hiding just beneath the surface.
That's crazy. You know what? Mental disorder or mental health is a serious thing. ብዙዎቻችን በተለይ እኛ ሀገር ውስጥ ብዙ ጊዜ አልተለመደም። እንደውም አንድ ዶክተር አለ ያለ አእምሮ ጤና የለም ሲል ብዙ ጊዜ ሰማዋለሁና እነዚህ ሜንታል ዲስኦርደሮች ምናምኖች በጣም ሲሪየስ የሆኑ ነገሮች ናቸው። አእምሮአችሁ ጤነኛ እስካልሆነ ድረስ ምናችሁም ጤነኛ ሊሆን አይችልም እና ባይ ኤኒ ሚንስ እንደዚህ አይነት ሲቹዌሽን ውስጥ ያላችሁ ሰዎች you should seek like እርዳታን ነው የሚያስፈልጋችሁ ከሆነ ከመጠየቅ ወደ ኋላ እንዳትሉ ነው። ዳዝንት ማተር ከእናንተ የሚበልጥ ነገር የለም እና ሲሪየስ የሆነ ኬዝ ነው። ባይ ኤኒ ሚንስ ዩ ኖ ቴራፒም ምንም በነፃ ቴራፒ የሚሰጡ ሰዎች አሉ እና መታከም የሚችሉ ነገሮች ናቸው እና በተለይ ወጣቶች እንደዚህ አይነት ነገሮችን ከቁም ነገር ወስዶ አባከና የሚል ሰው የለም እኛ ማህበረሰብ ውስጥ። በእኔም ስላጋጠመኝ ነው ብዙ ጊዜ ማለት ነው። ማለት ደብሮኛል ምናምን ስትል እንደ ቀልድ ነው የሚወሰደው እኛ ማህበረሰብ ጋር ዩ ኖ ግን ሲሪየስ የሆኑ ነገሮች ናቸው። ዊ ሹድ ትሪት ኢች አዘር ሲሪየስሊ ማለት ነው እንደዚህ አይነት ነገሮች ሲፈጠሩና እናንተም ከነዚህ የአእምሮ እክሎች ወይም ዲስኦርደሮች ያለባችሁ ወይም ደግሞ አለብኝ ብላችሁ የምታስቡ ካለ ኮመንት ላይ አስቀምጡልን እና ላይክ በዛ ጉዳይ ላይ ሀሳብ አስተያየት ያላችሁ ሰዎች ደግሞ ምክር ምንም ይሰጧችኋል ብዬ አስባለሁ። ፒስ አውት።